Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Nikitinaknits. My name is Evgenia and finally I'm so happy to record the entire video on my knitting equipment. I divided all I have in three categories. The first one is a necessary things that you need to actually start knitting, the basics, right? The needles, the markers and some other stuff. Second category is something that is not very necessary but is nice to have, that is very helpful. And the third category is absolutely not necessary but I wanted to have it and I did buy it, and I will speak my all honest opinion about it. All of the products that you're going to see today are bought with my own money. Nothing is sponsored in this video. And also right in the end of the video, I will be speaking about items that I really need, that I'm missing, and I realized I actually struggle without them. So that could be interesting to hear. So grab your knitting, grab your favorite drink, and let's begin with the first category, which are items that are absolutely necessary to start knitting and we can't avoid buying. So in these two cases, I have three sets. The first one is Seeknit Koshitsu Series bamboo needles, the full set. And here I have two sets, the Knitpro Sympthony wooden needles and Chiaogoo stainless steel needles. So when I was buying Chiaogoo stainless steel needles, I only bought half a set, which is from 2.75 up to 5mm needles. And I did have to buy 3mm needles separately because it didn't come in the set. And half of the case was completely empty, or more than half. So I did use up the space and I stored my Sympthony Knitpro wooden needles, which I started to knit with. And also I added my three crochet hooks, which is 2mm needles, 3mm and 3.5. So let's start with Knitpro Sympthony needles. I started knitting with them and I thought it's going to be my only needle set that I need. I was quite naive and I bought a lot of sizes all the way up to 6.5mm needles. I also did a little mistake. Some of them are 8 centimeters long. So look at this, they're quite short and my hands are middle size. They're not too big, not too small. And I do like at least 10 centimeters length. However, the big sizes, I bought 10 centimeters, but it was just random. I didn't even look at the length of the needles. I didn't know it's important. My Chiaogoo needles were 10 centimeters length, and I was already aware of the length that I'm buying, and I thought this is perfect. But with years, I realized that I actually enjoy 12.5 centimeters length. So now I regret a little bit that I didn't buy Chiaogoo 12 centimeters. My short experience with Sympthony Knitpro and Chiaogoo needles. I like them. They're really nice. I really like the feel of them. I call them something between stainless steel and bamboo needles. So they don't have enough grip as bamboo needles do, but they're not so slippery as stainless steel. One more thing is that they're not so sharp. They're also somewhere in the middle. They're not too rounded in the end, and they're not as sharp as Chiaogoo needles, for example. And with knitting experience, I realized that I do like sharp needles, and it doesn't bother my finger when I knit when it's sharp. So what I don't much like about the Knitpro Sympthony needles is the cables. The cables are really thick. They hold quite a lot of memory, and a few cables I already had to replace because they lost their shape completely, so they were completely bent like that. Maybe because I was squeezing them too much while storing, but still they hold too much memory and I don't really like that. I prefer way more flexible cords, and with today's competition in the market, I think they could already improve their cables, but still they're fine. It's not a tragedy for me, but when I want to knit with them, I always feel like, oh, these cables again, and I tend to lean towards my Chiaogoo cables or Seeknit cables, which I'm going to speak about later. So the question is, would I buy these needles again if I had a choice today? Probably not, because there's a lot of other needles I want to try and I already know that are better in the sense that I like them to be. So probably not, but I cannot say that I hate them also. I knit with them, I enjoy them, they're quite nice. Now let's speak about Chiaogoo needles, which are already better because first, they're longer, second, they're sharper, and the first thing I want to say that they're empty inside. So they're stainless steel, but they're extremely light because there's nothing inside. So I cannot say anything bad about them, not even one complaint. Every time I start to knit with these needles, I feel pleasure. I feel like the stitches are flowing and everything works for me, you know. I'm really, really happy. And I'm using this red, very flexible cable. The cable is insane. There is like some cord inside. I don't know. I think it's a metal cord inside, and they have zero memory. So no matter how much I'm going to bend it, it's not going to hold the memory. Well, I didn't try to bend too hard, right? But I'm not crazy. So in the normal usage, they don't hold up the memory. Some people said that in thin sizes, less than 2.75, the cords break with time. it's fine. I think it holds up still quite a lot of years, even if the smaller sizes break. I didn't experience because I don't have smaller sizes. It's fine to replace them because the cables are not so expensive. So would I buy the stainless steel Chiaogoo needles again if I had a chance? Absolutely yes, I would buy them, and even in more sizes. Let's speak about the bamboo needles, the Seeknit needles. This is the gift from my husband on my birthday 2 years ago. I bought it from official store, and I have a few things to say about them very shortly because it's a big set of needles and it was really expensive. I think everything with the shipping and taxes was 330 euros, and I bought everything that I had to buy, like all of the additional cables, all of the additional cords, everything. So I have controversial opinions about them. I'm happy about one thing, not happy about another, and just because they're so expensive, I have high expectations. This is the amount of needles I have from Seeknit Koshitsu. I think I was a bit too excited about them, and if I would go back in time, I would not buy a huge entire set for such amount of money. So I bought all of them from 2.5 all the way up to 10 millimeter needles that I never used even once, and 8 millimeter needles I haven't used ever. 7 I used, 6 I used, and so on. And the short needles of 5 centimeters I bought from 2.5 as well, all the way up to 5 millimeter needles. So the first thing I want to say that when I bought them, they came in sets of different groups of needles, which was really cute and beautiful. But the first thing I noticed that one set was looking quite newer than some other sets. I think it's not that they were used or anything. I bought it from official shop, but what was a big pity that 4 millimeter needles and 4.5 millimeter needles were looking quite less shiny and less new than some other sizes. And one of the biggest reasons why I went with these needles is that I've heard that they're really polished, like way more polished than most of the bamboo needles in the market. And I think one of the biggest reasons why they were quite different one from another is because it's handcrafted. So people who work in the factory, they do have machines, they use them, but each needle is human inspected and human crafted. So you could see in the joints between the metal parts, in some sizes they're not so perfectly joined, which is completely fine. But I just want to say that some of the needles, especially my favorite sizes, were looking way older, you could say, than some other needles. And I prefer a more polished, more new look, of course, because I'm buying new needles. So that was a little bit frustrating. Another thing I want to say, I never saw it on any reviews online about these needles, that these metal parts that are made of brass. So brass contains of copper, zinc, and some other materials, and this material is prone to oxidation. So I never cleaned these needles since the first day of use, just to show you this moment. I will clean them right after this video. There is a liquid that you can buy that is specifically to clean the brass, but you see these dark spots, they actually smell a lot like metal, and whenever you wrap your fingers around, your fingers are going to smell like metal, and some people do have allergies towards brass. So again, before buying the whole set, it would be nice to try the needles and see how your skin reacts to that. And these dark spots is the oxidation, basically. I did live in Tenerife for 2 years, and the climate is way more humid there, and we lived in the first line next to the ocean. So maybe someone doesn't have this experience. Now I live in the north of Spain, which is not such a crazy humidity. So let's see how it behaves after I clean them. But just to know that they were really nice and shiny when I bought them, and now a lot of them are very dark and very oxidized. However, they look super luxurious and beautiful, like gold, you know, on the pictures. And for people, that is very important, that they enjoy this type of aesthetics, is very nice. So now the sharpness and the length. The sharpness is perfect. Is a bit less sharp than Chiaogoo needles, but more sharp than the Knitpro. So they're perfect. I still prefer Chiaogoo in terms of sharpness, but it's hard to make bamboo so sharp. And the length, 12.5 centimeters, perfect. They also have 14 or 14.5 centimeters length and 10. So I chose 12.5 and I'm really happy. So you see, when I knit, I don't reach with my finger to the cable joint. That prevents me from constantly pressuring the cable and actually breaking it with time. And I really enjoy when my fingers are still on the needle and not on the metal part. Now the shorties. The shorties are 5 centimeters long, which is really, really tiny. And I'll be honest, I was really pissed at myself that I bought them because I could not know how to actually knit with them. So in the end of the day, this is how I should knit with them. I got used to this. I build up the muscles that should be responsible for this type of movement, and I'm really happy with them now. So there was a time when I was knitting hats on these needles, and I tried socks on them. I did not like that. Some people do knit socks and they enjoy it, I know, because I like to knit sleeves with them. I like to knit neckline with them and some other things that do require such small circumference. And I've heard that a lot of people enjoy knitting toys with them, but I don't need toys, so I cannot say anything. And what I can say, would I buy these shorties again? Was it a good buy? Absolutely yes. And sometimes I'm quite sad when I have to knit on 5.5 or 6mm needles and I don't have them in my collection. So overall experience knitting with these needles is brilliant. I love them so much, especially those ones that are really polished. When I knit with them, I feel very grounded to the earth, so very connected to nature, because you do feel that is bamboo. They do have a little bit of friction, but they're so polished enough and pressured with heat, I remember, that creates this very smooth touch to the needle. So I need everything on these needles. I need mohair, I need wool, cashmere. Some things are not so good for them, like superwash merino. I didn't like at all, and some other merinos are just too sticky to the needles. But most of the other materials are perfect, especially the summer yarns are really nice to use with these needles. So the last thing I want to say about these needles, and you can think if you're ready for that, is the cables. The thing with these cables is that first, they do have memory, and when I was buying them, I searched through so many reviews trying to find information if the cables have memory. Most people, if not all, said that it has no memory, it's perfect, you can bend them in a different way and they will never remember. But they do have memory, and that's the reason why I store them this way. The reason why you see so many cables, and there's actually more in my storage, is because the whole set is divided in three connection sizes. So these cords that connect to actual needle, you have M1 size, M2, and M3. So for example, you're knitting the ribbing on 3mm needles and you have to switch to 3.5. You cannot just switch the needles, you need to switch the cord. So you have to put the cord blocker, which is actually very cute and aesthetic, made of bamboo. And then you have to attach the new cord to a new needle and knit it all up. It was shocking for me at first, but I knew what I was buying and I got used to that. Now it's not a big deal for me and I learned how to manage. Plus the cord joins, you can join the cables with a specific little cord, which also consists of 3 sizes. And I had to store it in this little metal bag to not lose them. So knitting with these needles required me to become an organized person, because if not, I would just lose everything. And whenever I needed the cord right now, I couldn't find it, and that was interrupting my knitting inspiration, you could say. Why they did that? I think to create the experience quite seamless. So you see this connection between the needle and the actual cord. They wanted to keep as minimal as possible, but I think it could be achieved with 2 sizes only. Like in Chiaogoo, you also have thicker cords and thinner cords, but there are only 2 of them. I still think they're a bit too expensive for what they are. So for example, the bamboo version of Chiaogoo feels to me exactly the same. Some people say that the Seeknit is smoother, while some sizes of the needles are smoother and some are not, because they're so inconsistent in the surface. But I just want to say that I touched Chiaogoo bamboo needles in the shop and they felt brilliant. I really love them. Yes, they have red cables that are not so aesthetic as these ones, but I like them and they're cheaper and they're more manageable. And they're more equal because they're made in the factory and not with human. This is manufactured in Japan, and that's why it's way more expensive. I think if these were manufactured in China, they were maybe even cheaper. But again, it really depends on the person. Some people really appreciate that it's handcrafted, that is done in Japan, that is designed in Japan. And if those details are very matter to you, especially the aesthetics of this, right? This is very beautiful, especially if you're like knitwear designer, you post pictures constantly, or I don't know, test knitter, or just you have very nice Instagram account that you constantly post your knits, maybe it makes complete sense if you really enjoy this aesthetics. For me, I don't post so much of aesthetic pictures. I'm a bit more practical person, and the red cords would not bother me at all. Also, I would like to try Tulip Bamboo Needles, which is also a Japanese company, but they're more cheap, and I think the cables should be a bit better there. I've heard that they're way more elastic and less memory, but It's just the gossips, just someone's opinion. I never touched tulip needles, so I cannot say anything. So would I buy these needles again if I had a chance? Probably I would not buy the whole set. Maybe I would buy a few sizes to try of tulip, for example, and then the Seeknit and the Chiaogoo bamboo needles, and then I would decide which set do I want. But still, I'm happy with them. They're my beautiful favorite needles, and I'm not going to sell or replace them. Finally, the longest part of the video is done. Next one is sock needles, right? Double pointed needles. Let's start with them. So I have two sets here, 2mm needles from Like, also manufactured by Knitpro, and also just random needles, Needle brand, I don't know what it is. I bought them in the local yarn shop when I just started knitting, my first ever knitting attempt a few years ago. I'm not going to even speak about them. I don't like them. They're heavy, they scratch, and they're too sharp, and it's just, you know, cheap needles that nobody should buy. Let's speak about these ones, Like from Knitpro. They're really sharp, just for you to be aware, but they're really beautiful. This very nice blue color. The color goes away really quick, like the number of the needle, the size, and the actual paint goes out very quick, so the quality is not like on top. They broke really quick and they're really thin. If you knit very carefully and not too tight, you can try them, but if you're a tight knitter and you like to sit on your needles from time to time, they're not going to sustain it. So I always knit my socks on my favorite needles, which are now at work. I'm knitting socks with them. They're 2mm needles from Haya or Hia, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. So they're flexible double pointed needles. You see, they kind of mimic magic loop, but I absolutely hate magic loop. So I use these, and I know a lot of people don't like these ones actually. I went to buy 2.5 and 3mm needles, and if I wouldn't have the whole set of shorties from Seeknit, I would probably buy more sizes of such needles to knit sleeves with them. They're really, really nice. So when I started knitting with them, I did have to find out where to point them because it's not so comfortable at first, but once you figure it out, it flows and the socks are knitting really fast. Sometimes I have to find some tricks to knit certain heel constructions. For example, normal heel flap and gasset construction can be quite tricky with them, but still possible. I prefer strong heel construction, short row heel construction, and some others. So for me, it's not a big deal. But still, even heel flap and gusset would work with these needles. It's just that you need to do a few manipulations as you're doing that. So let's keep on going. We need the scissors. Mine are from Knitpro. They came very scratched. I don't know why, and I've heard that some other people also noticed that. At first I thought that they're used, and I got a bit unhappy that I bought used scissors from new shop. But when I heard from other people that they also received scratched ones, I relaxed. Now I would like some different scissors that are more beautiful, more interesting and special, but I'm a person, like, I can't do that. If I have scissors that work, that were not so cheap, that do their function, I cannot just throw them or give them and then buy new ones. Next is the measuring tape. For quite a long time, I had the most old measuring tapes, so it was always uncomfortable to measure myself or someone else. And finally, I bought the one from Chiaogoo. I really like it. It has like fake leather coverage, and you pull the tape, and then whenever you want to shrink it, you just press in the middle and it shrinks immediately. Now the ruler to measure the gauge, I have 3 of them. The Seeknit one is really, really nice. It's my favorite one actually. After using it for quite a while, I realized that it takes very minimal space, is very natural because it's again from bamboo. It looks very minimalistic, and it's just 10 centimeters. So you just put it and you don't have to find numbers. So you have a red mark in between, and you know that that's 5 centimeters, and you measure the gauge really quickly, and it's very beautiful. I like that. Another one I bought also is Chiaogoo, this functional thing that has holes to measure needle sizes if the paint went off and you don't know what size of needle is that. You have inches and you have centimeters. Quite nice. I like that inside you have 5 centimeters and 5, outside you have inches, and even though I don't need patterns usually that use inches, if I ever need the pattern that says certain amount of inches, I'm going to be completely lost if I don't have inches in the ruler, right? And now the stitch markers, a very necessary but quite aesthetic part of our knitting, and should be also quite functional. So I have markers from Chiaogoo, from Clover, from Japanese company, and a few from Seeknit that they were gifted when I bought the needles. I store them all together here in this red metal box, which is really helpful. So I have a few sizes of them for small needles, for middle, and for big ones. So these ones, the big ones, I never used even once because they're huge, for like 7 and more millimeters. So these markers from Clover are not so aesthetically pleasing, but they're really functional. They usually don't unlock themselves. Sometimes they do, especially the small sizes, but on average they don't. They're colorful, they're easy to see, and I don't get really sad when I lose one or two. When you buy really special markers that were expensive, I would personally feel sad if I lose them. The only downside is that they don't look so natural, they don't look so aesthetic, you know, and they don't look really eye-pleasing as for me. But I'm not going to replace them. I have a lot of them and I'm going to keep using them. So another one is from Seeknit, is these ones. They're really soft. I like them. I usually use them to mark the beginning of the round, but sometimes they tend to undo themselves, which is not the best thing. I would not maybe buy more of these. And the Chiaogoo ones are fine, but I usually only use them when I need to separate the stitch pattern repeat, not necessarily when I need to mark my raglan lines or something else. So I don't use them so often because they don't have unlocking option. And one more thing I forgot to mention is, of course, needles. Mine are from Clover and they're stored in this very cute, useful case. They're never getting lost, and inside I have 2 needles from metal, from stainless steel, and 1 needle from plastic. The metal ones have a bend in the end of the needle, which is really useful to do kitchenery stitch or Italian bind off or anything else. I really love that effect. And the plastic one is just a straight needle, super light, and very useful when I travel. So when I travel by plane, I always take it with me. If I need to put stitches on hold and use the scrap yarn or do a bind off or finish the item, very useful. Next category is items that we can buy, but they're not necessary, but I think they're useful. So the first one is the silicone elastic thread. They're from Prim. It's specifically for knitting in elastic. It's 200 meters per bobbin. I don't know how much weight is that, but it's 200 meters. It's a very, very thin, super elastic thread that you can knit in the item itself. So you basically knit it as a second thread, and that's supposed to give you elasticity. I saw the item that were knitted like that, and in the daylight, in the smooth garment that doesn't have any mohair, you do see this silicone thread. Some people don't mind it. I do mind it, so I would not knit with this. But if it's a fuzzy, fluffy, like mohair fabric, why not? Or sur alpaca, I think the thread will be hidden behind the fluff and it will be no problem. But in my case, I did not try it yet. What I do with this is I collected double, make a double thread, and I just use it like elastic in my necklines or in the hat, in the brim. So did not use it as it was designed yet. Now, next things to have is cable needles. They're still packed because I did not use them even once. I do cabling without the needles. There are quite a lot of tutorials on how to make it on YouTube. You can search, but I know that there are a lot of patterns where you actually need them and you cannot avoid them. So I put them in the second category because I'm going to be honest, I never used them even once, and I'm knitting very extensively for 3 years. And what can I say? They're probably for sure useful, especially the items where you actually need to use 3 needles. So you put some stitches on hold, you keep on knitting something, then you return to those stitches, you put them back somewhere, and of course you will need them. So mine are from Tulip plastic needles, very colorful, very bright, probably nice, but still plastic. If I had a chance, I would maybe buy them from wood or bamboo because they look more nice from natural materials. But well, this is what I have, and I'm not going to buy anything because I already have them. Another things I'm planning to actually buy more is these stitch holders. So this is, I don't know how you say it in English, quite useful. I'm still using it as a stitch holder. For example, I need to leave some stitches to rest, like a shoulder stitch, and while it's not enough of length, I still try to fit the stitches there. and hold. It's really useful, and you can buy longer sizes and shorter sizes. At first I left it in my stash thinking that it's going to be trash, but it ends up really useful in most of my garments. Next ones that are nice to have and that are quite useful is stitch stoppers. I'm not using them for all of the projects, but for the projects where I have alpaca or mohair, or I just have a lot of stitches, like in my husband's hoodie, I had a lot of stitches, and when I'm knitting in the round, I can't afford myself such a long cord. So I bought them because of pain. I was knitting on a cardigan for my cousin, and the stitches were constantly flying off the needles because it was alpaca and mohairs. And these really saved me from getting angry constantly. No matter what, the cardigan was huge though, but still, it was constantly going out, and they really saved me from losing the stitches. And I knitted in brioche, and imagine losing stitches in brioche would be even worse. The next one is blocking needles. Mine are from Knitpro and they're single, 1x1. I do regret that I bought single ones and not the connected ones. So these ones really deform my fabric whenever I block them. Before I was blocking my items on the towel, and now I have these ones. I'm going to speak about them, but still, it's really hard to block without pulling the fabric, and I'm pulling the fabric, especially like ribbing or angles of the sweater, and then I have the deformated angles. And the blocking mat, I finally bought the blocking mat. You see they're packed from the brand Boya. They're 4 pieces and each side is 30 centimeters, and they're not enough for the whole garment. I will need to buy a second one. I bought it on Amazon and it cost me 24 euro for 4 pieces, and I need to buy one more of these, so it's going to be enough to block the whole garment. I don't know if they release smell or not because they're packed, made in China, so I don't know what to expect regarding the smell. Do I suggest that you buy them if you're a beginner? I think you should only buy them when you're sure that you will keep on knitting the garments, and knitting is not your try hobby, you know, you're not just trying, you already know that you love it, you will keep going and you will keep knitting garments. And I think I'm going to speak about the last one in this category, which are the project bags. So you can buy project bags that are specifically designed as project bags, and I find them quite pricey. I prefer to have project bags, but I'm not ready to pay that much for them. So I buy them from underwear shops. They usually use natural materials, like this one is completely made of cotton, and if you can find them on discount, that's even better. And it's really nice quality, super soft, super beautiful, and probably washable. And now the last item in the middle category, which is nice to have but not necessary, is the ball winder. Mine is from Knitpro, made of natural wood. It is called natural. There's also like colorful version. I like this one, so I bought this one. It is pricey, and you definitely can go with a way cheaper option. For example, there are many just plastic simple ball winders. They don't maybe create the perfect ball ever, but they work. So I bought this, and I was aware that I'm buying this mostly for the way it looks, like for aesthetics. And also I like that it does create quite neat, beautiful balls of yarn. And it says that it can create balls up to 200 grams. I never tried it, but that's not for every ball winder. So there is this cable that you always have to remove in order to not stretch whenever you're not using the item. And also you have this device that attaches the item to the table so it doesn't flip. Really useful. I knit a lot with yarn and cone, and it was madness. Whenever I had to knit with 2 or 5 strands of Italian yarn and cone, I was just counting. I put timer, and I was really curious how much time I spent actually winding the yarn by hand. And whenever I saw that I spent 2 hours on only winding the yarn, I was like, am I crazy? What am I doing? And I immediately ordered the ball winder. I absolutely forgot to mention this beautiful thing that I bought very recently because I was struggling to tie up the Chiaogoo needles and they were constantly unscrewing themselves, and it was really bothering because they weren't screwing themselves, the yarn was getting stuck inside. I thought it's completely useless and I didn't know why they even sell it, but after using Chiaogoo needles for 2 years, I understood and I bought it. Really useful thing. And these hearts are very sticky to each other, so you grab them in between of the metal needles and you squeeze them in, and you can tie up the needle really well. Way more comfortable than to use a specific metal that you pull through the needle. You know, those metals are constantly getting lost. and it looks very nice and cute. The next one is these ball holders. I bought mine from Ukraine. They're handcrafted from Ukraine. If you really want them from Ukraine and you want to know where I bought them, you can comment under this video and I will send you the link of the shop where I bought them. But you can buy them from Prim, I know. Chiaogoo also makes them. So a lot of brands make those, and if you want, you can buy them from international brands. So these things are rotating. Very nice, very smooth. And I bought them to use Italian yarn and cone mostly. I first have to pull the thread up and then I can use that. That was really annoying and uncomfortable, especially when the yarn has some spinning oil. It's quite sticky, not so flexible, and I think this should solve the problem. Also, some people say that it's quite nice to use with normal yarn, not the yarn and cone. And it solves a lot of issues, and even some people say that it helps to maintain the tension and make the stitches more even, which I personally doubt, but it may be true. Now the umbrella swift is also from Knitpro and is the same series as the Ballwinder Natural Wood series, the same material. Absolutely not necessary. Even if you have hanks, you can attach it to the chair and use your finger to put the thread up, and then you can use the ball winder with the other hand. That process does require some coordination and some attention, but with some practice, of course, you can get used to that and do it. But I really like the beauty of it and the process as you're winding the yarn. It looks really beautiful with this umbrella, and I'll be honest, I just bought it for, of course, it's comfortable, it's nice, but I bought it mostly for having this beautiful set together. So umbrella has really good quality. I like that. It's very easy to use. You just fix it here and rotate. Whenever you're done, you just pull it down. Super smooth, super nice. Yeah, I don't regret, and I'm really happy I treat myself with this beautiful item. Now this one is lights for reading books. When you just put it here on your neck and you turn on the light, you have a warm light, cold light, and combination of both. So before bed, of course, I use the yellow light to not interrupt my melatonin. So I didn't know actually which category it belongs to, because if you're knitting with black or dark blue yarn or dark green, like I do now, even if it's like this, already 7, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. it's still light, but I already don't see the stitches really well, and the eyes have to work the extra work to actually see them. And of course, if you're knitting in the late evening and if you're watching TV that has a different light shining to you, it's going to be even harder to see the stitches. So in order to not put the huge light behind you and bother people around and yourself as well, I think this could be really useful. Also, it bends in the way that you want. I just bought a cheap one from Amazon. I don't know if it's good or not. For now, it satisfies me 100%. So you can bend it the way you want and it's going to serve you. I think it's really useful thing, and it holds the charge quite well. It charges through USB-C. A really nice item, and I think it does contribute to the health of our eyes. And the last items I want to speak about today is the boxes where I store my work in progress and some of the yarns. So this is absolutely not necessary, of course, but I enjoy using them. So this is the yarn box that is only for the beauty. Just inspires me, and I hold the yarn here. It consists completely of the cages, so you see what's going on, and it prevents the moths and different types of things that can harm your yarn. So it's really nice to store in the yarn in it, and you can have bigger sizes, smaller sizes. Mine is quite small. And this is the plastic box that imitates the natural material. I really wanted to go with natural materials because I don't like plastic next to me constantly. But I was afraid that natural material like raffia or wood or anything else could contribute to moth. You know, moth, if it appears, it puts the eggs in between of the materials, and I'm a bit afraid of that. I always make sure I do my best to prevent it, and I find that it's very easy to clean and maintain. It does have little holes, so the air does go through. And even if my whip here for a lot of time, humidity doesn't accumulate there, and again, it prevents from moth, my biggest fear. And yeah, I really like to have my whips here. I just take it with me next to the couch, so things are nice and organized and not just hanging around my couch. So I have two of these, and another one is long whips that I don't touch, and here are the active whips. All right, we're in the end of the video. I spoke about all I have, and the last part is things that I don't have but I wish I had. And it's not like I wish I had, but I actually need to buy them. Next one is real elastic thread. I showed you the silicone one, but I actually need the thick, nice, durable elastic thread. The next item I actually need is a row counter. I still count my rows when I need to in my phone, which is super uncomfortable. The phone locks, I have to unlock it, put it in my notes, or sometimes I write it on a paper, then I lose the paper. It's really pain. So I went through all of the pain and I went to buy a ring from Knitpro. I really like that one. Then I want to have stitch holders. They're really useful. I want to buy them, but the ones I see in the yarn shops are usually smelling really intensively like plastic, which bothers me, so I didn't find the one that don't stink. If you know, if you're also sensitive to that and you know some of them, please let me know in the comments. Next thing I need is peeler. I still don't have a peeler, and can you imagine, I still peel off my garments by hand. Such a shame. I'm knitting for quite a few years. If you know a really nice machine that you truly enjoy, please let me know in the comments. I would like to go through. Oh my god, I forgot to leave a bad review. These sock blockers, very important equipment. These are horrible. I'm sorry, Kremke Soul. I love your yarn. You're amazing. I love your brand, but these are not nice. These sock blockers are made of wood. I really liked it. It had this very beautiful, cute alpacas in the middle, and it's made of wood, so why not? But whenever I have to pull the sock in or out, the wood is not so smooth, it's not polished, so it always catches the yarn and actually creates issues. So you just need a new sock, you're so happy, you block it, and whenever you pull it on and pull it off, you're actually at the risk of damaging the sock. Not nice. I would like to get new sock blockers. And again, if you know the good ones that you really like, let me know. So that was all I wanted to say about my equipment. Please let me know any thoughts that you had regarding my equipment or the words I said. Maybe you do have some interesting suggestions or advices. I think a lot of knitters would enjoy going through the comments and get some useful advice from each other. If you like this video, you can check out my other videos. I do very interesting pattern roundups and knitting podcasts where I speak about what I actually knit. Thank you again very much for watching, and I'm hoping to see you soon in my next video.